What does Sardi's mean to you?
Well, I love the history of Broadway, and so, I mean, just being on this block, and I remember being a kid, and the first time I came here, it was a school field trip. They brought us all on a bus to see the musical 42nd Street. And then I think I liked it more than anybody else. And, of course, we had the super cheap seats, but it was so much fun. I remember riding the bus through here and getting stuck in traffic. And the first time I heard about Sardi's, it's just the stuff of legend if you're obsessed with the theater. And there's a romance to the theatrical life that, as a kid, when you fall in love with the profession, Sardi's kind of represents. I mean, we got Liza Minnelli's portrait over there. I remember once, when the first times I got to New York, I couldn't afford to eat there, but we walked into the Russian tea room just to see it, and Liza Minnelli just sucking back martinis right there at the bar. And I thought, wow, this is real. This is like a real place, Broadway,
Going back to when you were 18, you were in Dead Poets Society.
That's true.
Second movie, and it's Oscar nominated. When you're in a movie like that, so young, does it set you up or does it set you up?
Well, it's a great question because it's possibly both. If you let it be the high watermark of your life, it will be. If you put too much on that. You don't want anything at 18 to be the high watermark of your life, I was lucky because the first film I had done was an abject failure. And I had thought it was, in 1984, I did this movie called The Explorers, which was like a $30 million movie in 1984.
Oh, yeah.
It was from the director of Gremlins. It was supposed to be a big deal. I was walking around like I was the new E.T. or something, I mean, I was going to be a big star, and the movie bombed, and nobody liked it, and nobody went to see it, and I really felt like it was my fault.
You felt like it was your fault?
Yeah, I was in it with River Phoenix, whose next movie was Stand By Me, and he was jettisoned to international stardom, and I was like, oh, what didn't work about The Explorers? Me. And so I started, that was very difficult. I mean, I don't know how else to put it except that, whenever the flames of your ego get fanned too much and then cold water comes on them, it's just, you feel spent and like a fool, forever thinking you might be, So when Dead Poets Society was happening and people were saying it was a success, I never bought it. I was like, yeah, we'll see. I just kept saying, we'll see. I don't know. And then slowly it kind of dawned on me, I guess this kind of is a success. But I was already thinking at that time about like how to use acting to make some cash so that I could have a life as a writer, so that I could be a director, so some kind of job that could sustain.
You weren't thinking acting was what you're going to be doing.
I knew
until
I liked
age
it, but I didn't trust the opportunities would be there. The experience of Explorers was kind of like putting your hand on a burner. I just was like, all right, you can't trust that, And then slowly, with the success of Dead Poets Society, doors started opening, and I kind of inched my face through the door, and then I kind of put a foot through, and then I slowly walked through. And now here I am on CBS This Morning.
Before we move on from Dead Poets, I was rewatching Captain, My Captain scene, which got me always, but now especially that scene just tears at my gut. For you?
Oh my God, it's changed. Well, first of all, there's so many things I could say about it. It's so incredible to walk around 30 years later, have people talk to you about something you did when you were 18. And it's kind of powerfully moving about the power of art, and that ideas really can transform people, and they can live beyond you. And I meet kids with Carpe Diem tattooed on their arm, and they're 19 years old, and the movie's speaking to them. And I know, watching Peter Weir and Robin Williams, the level of discipline and artistry that was applied to that. It wasn't a job to them, it was like a life's calling. Now there's that aspect. then there's also a thing where that was a teaching for me. To sit there and have Rob Williams say to you, gather ye rosebuds while ye may, to be talking about Henry David Thoreau and Walt Whitman and talking about the power of ideas. There's a scene in that movie where he's talking about how to grade poetry, and he has all the kids rip it out of their, it was like, I didn't realize how much I was being taught and how that sustained me through negative criticism. It's like, there's not any rules about being a great actor. Drop dead, so you don't like it. Suck an egg, you know? It's not my problem you don't like it. You don't know what great acting is any more than I do.
Wow.
You know? And those ideas were given to me by playing the movie. And Peter Weir was a great artist who was in the center of that. And he was, luckily, he wasn't just a great artist. He was also a good teacher. And he was a caring mentor and a good father and a good man. And so I was able to witness firsthand somebody who didn't let success turn them into a blowhard. He was a person who used his success to empower others and not to fan the flames of his own ego or to have power over others. So it's like, oh, wow. So this is what success looks like. It doesn't look like some guy staring at himself in a mirror. It looks like somebody doing something for other people. Like it, I can do that, or I can. That's something that I could. That's a pursuit worth aspiring for. So that movie's impact on me was tremendous. But I'm not. It's not like I was sitting there at 19 going, "That movie changed my life." I wasn't even aware of it.
You didn't think of it.
I was just thinking about whether Susan and Molly and whoever females were in the room liked me. That's all I was thinking about.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
At that age,
that's
that's what you're
about.
thinking. Can you watch that movie now that Robin's gone? It does not fundamentally change the way I watch the movie, because even at 18, I was aware of the complexity of his emotional life. I've had a lot of depression in my family, and it was obvious to me that all that power and that charisma came at a certain cost. He's a deeply, deeply sensitive person who was highly attuned to the energy of a room. And I remember once he was, making up lines, and everybody's laughing, everybody's praising him, and then I went to get a glass of water, get a bagel or something, and I saw him hiding in a little corner in a couple of, he was hiding in the dark by himself. And okay. It makes a lot more sense to me now, actually. It was a lot. It was taxing. There's a lot of stories about clowns, and the happiness that they give, and at what cost. How much that takes out of them.
Yeah. So I say all that to say the end of his life does not define his life to me, And when I watch the movie, I think of the spirit of the man that I knew on those days, and how powerful it was, and how much he weathered that storm of his own psyche for us and for other people. And I admire him tremendously. There aren't two of him.
So true. So beautifully put.
Well, thanks. But, and that said, there aren't two of any of us. And to remember that, there aren't two of you, and there aren't two of me, and everybody in this room. And so figuring out who that person is, that's the life's work.
So speaking of that,
Yeah.
so then you do this movie Reality Bites, right?
That's true.
And it launches you, right? Yeah. But at the same time, you're playing this guy that a lot of people really didn't like. What was that like for you?
It was kind of funny, because people thought I was Troy. So they would think, oh, that guy's so pretentious. They didn't think Troy was pretentious. They thought I was pretentious. Or they thought Winona should have gone with Ben Stiller instead of him, and they were mad at me about it. I just played the part, you guys. But I ultimately took it as a compliment. I was like, wow, they really bought that character. Because I knew I wasn't a prep school kid either. When I did Deadpool, everybody, for 5 years, everybody thought, oh, he's a prep school kid. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then, you know, you do training day, people think you're, you know, a tough guy or something like that, you know. I started to learn how if you do a part really well, people just think it's you. That's why I think it's kind of funny, this joke to myself that, you know, every time you get a prize for acting, it means you failed. Because they caught you, you know. You know, they can tell you're acting. But I still like prizes. So
I was going to say
that. No. I didn't want to say that out loud. No, what I mean is that there's something wonderful when it's invisible. You know, you see Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And, well, he won the Academy Award for that, so there goes my theory. But it just feels like he is Jack, you know? It just seems like he's making up his lines. I mean, I used to watch that movie over and over again. Like, was that in the script? Like, I just was obsessed with, he was so loose and so alive and seemed so present. And I was like, that's a magic trick.
So that's a North Star, that idea.
Yeah.
So it's a compliment if somebody comes up to you, because I know you've said that people come up to you in a restaurant and say that they hate you.
Yeah, that's happened before, particularly after Reality Bites. I don't know why that guy got under people's skin, you know. It's, he was the hipster. He's the 90s hipster, too cool for school. But he was smart, and he was funny. But he was arrogant and self-satisfied, and, you know, so I understood. But it was just my job to play him.
Didn't take it personally.
I tried not to. I just want to get another part, show him I could do something else.
So training day, okay, I think you said in an interview, you can remember every day of the shooting of training day?
Pretty much, that's how magical, I mean, I bet if you talk to some studio musician who recorded an album with Miles Davis or John Lennon, I bet they remember every day of that. Like, this is my profession, this is my chosen craft. This is debatably, it's not even debatable to my mind really, is the greatest American movie star. And I say American, I'm not even sure I don't know. He's the greatest movie star of our time, and he's a great actor too. And he's sustained a level of commercial success and artistic credibility simultaneously while carrying a very heavy mantle of race in America. It's astonishing, you know, and it didn't happen by accident. You know, he works really hard and he's really good at what he does. And so once you see that, you know, once I watch him fiddle with his toolkit, see the way he memorizes lines, see the way he works on it, see the way he works a set, see the ways in which he uses energy and imagination. It's like, oh, I see. There's another room to try to get into yet, you know.
So you just absorbed every single moment
yeah, well, I got to
of
see,
working with Denzel?
The same way I felt about watching Jack Nicholson. Well, now I got to be in scenes with somebody who had that level of artistry. It was pretty thrilling. And it's good to know that there's a lot that you don't know, because it keeps you hungry and it keeps you humble, and you realize that, okay, yeah, I have not achieved that level of excellence. Like, I'm not capable of that yet.
And that didn't cow you?
No, it inspired me. You know, I was like, well, how the hell did you do that? Like, wow, when did you think of that? And it's a little bit like how I imagine watching a great athlete practice. You know, you don't just magically score 40 points a game. There's a lot of practice that goes into knowing how to work a game. It's hard to get off that many shots, first of all, you know. So seeing opportunities, not waiting for people to create an environment for you to be successful in, creating the environment yourself, you know. And that's kind of the difference for me between being a child actor and an adult actor, you know, and that was around, my relationship with Richard Linklater was developing around the same time period where we were pushing each other to expand our work. And I got to work with Denzel. I was turning 30, and a kind of transition happened that was exciting for me.
Where you felt like?
I felt like, okay, I'm gonna do this for my life. This is interesting. I've got a lot to learn, and I'm ready.
You mentioned that Denzel was able to do these big box office movies as well. Was big box office ever appealing to you, even for a moment?
Yeah, I wanted it in the right way. Training Day was the right way. I call it threading the needle, when you can make something that's commercial and artistically substantive. You know, like, it's very hard to do both of those things. Commercially viable, you know, like if you got to feed 10,000 people, right? You're going to make hot dogs, and they're not going to be delicious. You know, if I'm having 10 people over for dinner, I can make you a really nourishing, beautiful meal with the right things that's just for you, and it's going to be healthy and enjoyable. Likewise with movies, you know, if you got to entertain billions, you're going to do the film version of a hot dog, you know. And some people can do both. Some people can make a mainstream movie that is substantive and nourishing, and it's powerful. And that is the goal. But that's the goal more than the success itself. You know what I mean? If I could make the one from the Cuckoo's Nest, just to riff on that one, and have it be well, yeah, I want that kind of success. You know, but I don't want success for successes. That's not the end. The point is not to get butts and seats. The point is, what do you do with them when they're there? You know?
So have you turned down opportunities where there's a big paycheck, big box office movie?
In my life?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to understand, it wasn't hard. Now I wish I did some of those. But the way I was thinking at that time, I just wasn't oriented that way. I was so interested in the theater, and I was so interested in a kind of punk rock spirit, and I didn't want to earn it somebody else's way. You know, I really admire people who are successful and things like that. I don't want to I wanted Before Sunrise to be a giant, huge hit, right? I mean, that's what I wanted. It wasn't, but I would rather it be an excellent movie that people want to talk about 25 years later than you know, as Larry Hart says, Larry Hart accuses Oklahoma of pandering a little bit, right? He says it gently, he says it kindly. But my favorite kind of art is when you feel like somebody's talking to you like a friend. They're not talking down to you, they're talking to you like a friend. This is the best of me, you know? And some people, the best of them is extremely populist. They're being honest. It's who they are. It's not who I really am. And so I've got to try to play my game and find you where we can really meet. You know?
That makes sense. Do you ever think about where your life might have gone had you, let's say, gotten the role in Titanic?
Yeah, I've thought about that one. Yeah, because I have to say, I would happily publicly say how much I admire the way DiCaprio's handled his career. It's awe-inspiring to me. I mean, I think he's more than anybody. I'm older than him, and so it's hard to just take your hat off to somebody younger than you. But I did that about 25 years ago with him. And I think I'm one of the few people that knows really how hard what he's accomplished. He took the success of Titanic, really did something with it. He's turned it into just really serious, interesting film after serious, interesting film. He's pushing himself as an actor, and he's doing it with the heat of the spotlight on him. It's it's similar to the way that Denzel has. They're very different men, obviously, with different journeys, but it's awe-inspiring to me, the way he's used his success. That I would have coveted, you know, because he did it his way, and he made quality, and he keeps working as an actor. That, you know, a lot of my heroes, Denzel, Warren Beatty, I was admired him, and they had commercial success, but they also had they were doing artistically challenging work. And so but the challenging part was the priority for me. So if I didn't see a challenge, I wasn't tempted, you know, but I didn't know. Here's the funny, this is where it was arrogant of me. I thought the offers would keep coming, you know, to sell out. But they stop coming if you turn them down. You know, if you don't make people money, they don't offer you things. And so I had these waves, like after Reality Bites or Training Day, where I would be getting offered big movies, and I was like, And I think people thought I was too cool for school. I wasn't. I was just obsessed with what I was doing, you know? And I don't think I thought that I didn't understand how much popular culture is largely for young people. When you're young, you think it's everybody. You don't realize that, oh, this is a young person's game. And those kinds of job offers are, there's a shelf life on that.
When did your shelf life, when did that hit?
You know, around the same time gray starts appearing in your beard, you know. Yeah.
Suddenly those sellout movie offers aren't coming anymore.
Yeah. You have to already be making people a lot of money by the time that happens to keep going.
Makes sense. You've made a point, and you touched on this, of doing things other than acting, writing novels, directing, making documentaries. Was that a conscious decision to say, I want to balance this acting thing may not last forever?
Maybe. It's more, I don't think, it's such a roller coaster life. You like, I pour myself into Lee Rabon, right? And I'm there in Tulsa, and I'm playing this guy, and I'm driving a van, and I'm obsessed with what he's wearing, and I'm obsessed with the way he talks, and I'm meeting all these amazing people, and we're becoming friends. Show wraps, it's over. All those people. It's like when summer camp ended, and all your friends are gone, and nobody even remembers you're walking around, and your mom doesn't know how great there's no connection to your previous, that summer camp experience has no connection to your new daily life. And as an actor, that's happening to you over and over again. And you have no idea whether you're going to be out of work for a couple weeks or 2 years or 4 years or 6 months. You have no idea. And it can create a real up and down of the self-esteem, you know? And it can make you feel really lost. And what I learned kind of young was, all right, if I'm doing something, if I'm writing a book and I get this great part, great, I can put this book in this drawer and I go off and do this, and then it wraps and I come back to that book, and that's me. I'm me, and here I am, I'm back, and I have some continuity in my life that's going on throughout all these different parts. And simultaneously, I'm learning about writing, and I'm learning about expressing myself, and that helps me be a better actor. As I got older and started having kids, the time for writing was getting usurped, and I discovered documentaries, which was kind of easier to put down and pick back up. And so I've made a few of those, but it's the same part of my brain that's trying to find balance in my life, Ethan's life, and gives me continuity between the characters, you know?
That's great. And you said it evens out that self-esteem, that psychological torture that it must be to go in and out of these projects.
It makes the adjustment less. You know, I work with my wife. That really helps too, because somebody else was at summer camp with you, and they come back and you guys can talk about how it went and what you learned, and so that really helps a lot.
You're very joyful, optimistic. Did you make a conscious decision at some point to say, I can't control a lot of this as an actor, so I'm going to control my attitude?
1,000%. It's all we control is our point of view. And you can have a point of view on any situation. I've seen people in absolute triumph that should be blissed out and happy, and all they are is pissed about the residuals they didn't get, and they let it overcome their life. They are, no sooner do they win a prize than the pain of not winning it next year seems egregious. You know, there's a danger with the warmth of the spotlight can make an ordinary temperature feel really cold, you know, and you have to be really, really careful with that. And so it's your point of view that you can control. You can have a miserable experience, and if your point of view is right on it, you start to realize it's really funny. This person is a total idiot, and I'm learning a lot from them, you know, and I can't. And what's funny is I learned this young. I learned more from the films that went badly than I did from Dead Poets Society. Because when everything goes right, you just think, well, it's just, I guess that's how it rolls, you know? It's like a sailor. You'd learn more from bad weather, that you can handle storms and you can handle this. And that's been so true of my life. So you start going, if something bad's happening, guess what? This is great. So your life is actually presenting you a win-win situation. It's either going to go great or you're going to learn a ton. Both are awesome, you know. And you start getting in that headspace, then you're inviting joy in, you know. And life is so, you know, without rain, you can't have a sunny day. You know, if we lived forever, we would have no joy of life. I mean, it's the correlation of opposites, you know.
I'm imagining that this is part of what you've tried to pass on to your daughter, Maya.
All my kids.
With her specifically being in this business, is there a temptation to try to protect Maya from the heartbreak that is inevitable in this business?
No, you can't protect anybody from the heartbreak that's inevitable because, as you said, it's inevitable. It will break your heart, and that's the point. And your heart's going to open, and it's going to expand. My son is falling in love with acting, too. He just did this incredible performance of Ibsen's Ghosts at Lincoln Center, and he just wrote his own play. And I'm watching him stare this profession in the eyes, and you have to figure out who you are and what you have to offer. And getting your heart broken doesn't mean anything bad is happening. You know, that's a trick to think. It ain't gonna be all roses and sunshine. And if it was, you'd be a horrible bore. You know, it's one thing my mom said, there's only two things worth hating: an easy life and vainglory, right? And then you start to look at life. I mean, all the great athletes talk about that. You're either gonna win the game or you're gonna learn how to play better. So that's the same is true of acting in this profession. Anybody who's fallen in love has been heartbroken, and I think almost everybody would do it again.
Very true. Okay, so let's talk about prizes for a second. Going back to Training Day, your first Oscar nomination, what is the seared memory that you have from that experience?
I was sitting next to Denzel when he won. He's one of my favorite actors. It felt good.
That was it.
That was cool.
Yeah. And as far as you were not winning,
I saw the whole thing as a victory lap. You know, I knew that were not for the great light of Denzel's performance, nobody would even notice me. So I was amused. Hey, look, you know who I was nominated against? Ian McKellen for Gandalf, one of the greatest performances in cinema history, and he didn't win either. You know, another time I was nominated, I was nominated against Robert Duvall, one of my favorite actors, and he didn't win either. So I mean, you take this for what it is. Denzel said something to me that I hope I'm not paraphrasing wrong, but this idea was, you don't want to win now. You're too young. You know, it'll kill your drive. You don't deserve it yet. Earn it. Make sure by the time you get it, you've earned it, and you know you've earned it. You don't ever want, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something to the point of, you don't want a prize to elevate your status. You want to elevate the status of the prize. That's the goal you're chasing. I was like, gotcha. I hear you, loud and clear. So that keeps you working and keeps you hungry.
So you know where I'm going to go next.
What's
now
that?
There's Oscar buzz around Blue Moon. Do you tune that out? How do you handle that?
We live in a culture, it's really hard to tune anything out. You have to hold it in balance and be really grateful to be at this age doing this long and have that conversation even exist. That conversation existing is like a victory in and of itself, right? That's good. There's an obvious other part of you that goes hey, I've dedicated my life to this job, and this is seen as a barometer. And I would be dishonest if I didn't say that, that'd be amazing, you know? And you have to hold it in its proper place. For me, with this job, the fact that it's happening, there's particular joy accompanying it, which is that I love the movie. I've made 9 movies with Richard Linklater. I've made it with a bunch of my oldest friends. I mean, the man who did the hair and makeup on it, David Atherton, we've done a bunch of things together, and a lot of different things I've learned along the way were involved in the making of this particular movie. And so that would feel special. I wouldn't be the actor I am without my friendship and collaboration with Richard Linklater. So that feels appropriate to me, that are. But you also have to, I remember, this is so corny, but it just flashed through my head. I was like 11, 12 or something, and I said to my mother, I said, what's gonna happen with my life? What's gonna happen? You know? And I remember it so vividly, in the kitchen, like Doris Day, when I was just a little girl. You know, it goes into Que Sera, Sera. You know, and you have to have a little Que Sera, Sera, you know? I find I don't take any of it for granted. That's, I guess, the right answer. Any little bit of it.
Beautiful. Que sera, sera.
Right? My mom literally pranced around the whole kitchen. She sang the whole
She did,
song.
she
I was
sang.
like, Mom, stop. Mom, this is embarrassing.
But did you get the point?
Well, I'm 55. I'm talking to you about it, so I think I got the point. Yeah.
Whatever will be, will be.
It will. Will we have rainbows day after day?